All right, hello and welcome to the show. Now, I know you've been very excited to get into this podcast in the sense that presumably you either downloaded or clicked on it at some point. So, you know what? I'll take that as close enough. We're going to talk today about doors. Let's get into it. The single leaf door is the door that most people are going to think of when you say, hey, picture a door. It has a hinge on one side, it has a composite body most of the time, and a handle on the other end. But that is one of the most boring type of doors that there are. Let's talk about some more interesting kinds. First of all, have you ever watched a Western? You know the saloon doors where the one cowboy kicks it and then, storms through, and it's dramatic. I don't watch a lot of Westerns, but I have seen the doors, and they're really cool, because you can do that, and they slam. It's exciting. The other kind of door that I'm a big fan of is the gib door, sometimes referred to as a jib door, which is hidden in the wall with no visible trim or materials or handles. It's designed just to kind of blend in, and it's often used in panic rooms or in murder mysteries. Now, another type door that's really interesting is the bifold door, in that it actually has a crease in the middle, like a piece of paper, except tall and permanent and made of door. Think closet doors, or some houses have them between large entryways. You can also see them sometimes in large industrial buildings, in that they'll use bifolds to separate rooms into more than one room. Another door that I think is really interesting is the wicket door. Now, the wicket door is a small door that was added, so you don't have to use a larger, usually ceremonial door. And I like that one just because it seems so pointless. I mean, you've already constructed a giant door, but then somebody had to come along and go, well, God, I mean, I like that there's a giant door, but what if we had a normal one also? And that just seems like quitter talk to me. So how do you convince someone to do that? They've just spent days building, a 16-foot high bifold door, and then you have to tell them, well, no, let's build a normal, just a single leaf door next to it so we don't have to open the cool one? Come on, that's just it. The other door that's come into popularity recently, and this is where I'd like to really get into things, is the false door. Now, this dates back as far as ancient Egyptian architecture, especially in tombs, where it was believed to represent the door into the afterworld. Although the false door has, interestingly, received a surge of popularity lately, thanks to the TV show Rick and Morty, and one special they did regarding real fake doors. Now, this is interesting because it applies to more than seriously, again. One sec. Yeah, hello?
Hey, Liam, we should start a podcast.
What? No, I'm doing a podcast. I'm doing it.
No, like us. Like, we should do a podcast.
Okay, cue the intro. Okay, well, welcome to the show. My name, for the 13th time today, is Liam Nolan, and this is apparently my co-host, Matthew Galifianakis.
Yes.
Oh, see, I thought you were going to say something there. Well, we are people who are hosting a pod... I don't know, you just called me with this. Are you not going to contribute? Should I just do it myself? Because that was the original plan.
I don't know, you're the podcast expert, apparently.
Yes, I stand by. Fine. We met in high school because we're boring people with no good backstory. Is there anything fun to talk about there? High school is terrible, for those of you who didn't notice. It's not great.
So we could talk about how we met, like, the first time.
Was it that time when you were the only person whose name I guessed correctly in French class?
No. So, I mean, like, I feel like you did that at one point.
That's the first time I remember you existing.
Well, the first point that I actually had a conversation with you is we both went to the same high school for some reason or another. And there was always this one, there's this one weird kid that always sat at a table alone. And not only was he alone at that table, all of the surrounding tables in the grid were also empty.
Side note, it was amazing. I could clear a room like nobody's business.
Oh man, you ruined the spoiler where I said, and that person was you.
It was clearly going to end up being me. That was not a spoiler.
So anyway, I was trying to fit in high school. Tried to sit with the cool kids, and they're like, "Hey, if you want to sit here, you have to sit with that guy for like 15 minutes." And they pointed over to Liam, and I'm like, "Yeah, I could do that." And so I went over to the table, sat down. I'm like, "Hey, can you help me with my French homework?"
That could have happened. That was not the only time that kind of thing happened to me. In fact, as far back as I remember once in like elementary school, it must have been 5th grade, a bunch of kids presumably were off playing dares or whatever, and someone bet a girl in my class $15 that she wouldn't run over and shake my hand.
Did she do it?
No, she actually chickened out at the last second.
For $15.
It was bizarre, but that's the best I could put the story together after the fact.
I would have shaken your hand for $15.
I would have done almost anything for 15. Do you know how many chips you can buy with $15?
I would have gone as low as $2.
That's fair. Yeah, I get it.
Maybe $2.50.
All right, still
Get a soda.
still reasonable.
However much one soda is.
You used to be able to get an RC for like 25 cents. And it's
Yeah,
not because
but now
I'm
it's
from the 40s. There was just a corner store by my house that got, I guess, amazing deals on RC Cola. The king of colas, by the way.
Yeah, and now I'm at college and go over to the vending machine. It's like, yeah, you want a Monster Energy drink? The thing that you could buy at Sam's Club in bulk for like 75 cents a piece? $4.50.
Good deal. I am trying to do literally anything but babysit children, which is my current job.
So why'd you get that job again?
Well, when I responded to the phone call, I thought it was for a clothing store, like a used clothing shop. And then in the interview, I said, well, I don't really care for kids, but if you offer me the job, I'll probably take it. And then they did. So, welcome to my life.
So you even told them. It's like, I don't really like kids.
Yeah. I wasn't super interested in them. It's fine. I have a job now.
Okay.
It's okay. Oh, Matt, you've started... Okay, so I started knitting because my mother forced me to. And it turns out, by the way, knitting is kind of great. I don't know why more people don't do it. So you started recently. Have you been knitting anything?
I have not. I've been way too busy.
That's too bad. Knitting is good. I'm working on... I'm making the Doctor Who scarf. I'm like a quarter of the way done. It's very exciting. I finally got the yarn that I needed.
Oh, nice. That's what you were waiting for?
Yeah, I forgot to order... So here's a fun little tip for any of you who get into ordering bulk yarn from Turkey. Make sure you order all the colors you're going to need the first time. Because otherwise you're going to spend like an extra $30 in shipping for one ball of yarn. Yeah, it turns out there's a reason I'm such a failure. It's because I can't remember that green exists.
Yep, I don't really have that problem because I do origami and I can just go over to Office Depot and it's like, hey, I need some green and some red and some blue. And they're just like, okay, yeah, here. Or I just buy a pack of sticky notes that already has all the colors in it.
But will you have a giant impractical scarf to wear in the deep south?
No, but I'll have a giant impractical ball that I could carry around. It's like, ooh, look, it's made of paper. It's fancy, it's sharp, but if you get water on it, it'll melt.
Do people often throw water on people carrying around giant impractical paper balls?
I have a sample size of 1, and yes.
Well, that I think we can extrapolate to all of reality pretty safely, yeah?
I don't know necessarily what it is, but I've had this experience all the way from middle school to now, where I'm just carrying around one of my origami creations, and then people just go caveman mode, and they're just like, ooh, what is pointy? And then they grab it out of my hands like, ooh, look at this. Oh, I broke it. It's like, no, why would you do that?
You know, that's an interesting question. For those of you who haven't been listening, I have a very large head. And I mean that both metaphorically and physically. And I recently found a hat that will actually contain my skull. And I've been looking for a hat because I'm outside a lot with my job. And it just makes it a little more bearable because it turns out we live on the surface of the sun, except humid. It's not a good hat. It is It's like a brown cowboy hat, and it's made of wool, and it has a peacock feather in it. And I wish I was joking, but I'm not. And here's the thing about wearing a hat that literally has a peacock feather in it. Every tiny child who you work with is going to try to pull the feather out of your hat. It's inevitable, apparently, and incredibly frustrating, because they're too short, so they just jump near you.
They just want to do the Yankee Doodle thing.
Where you put a feather in your cap
no, that's put a feather
and call
in
it macaroni.
Why is it called macaroni?
Macaroni used to be slang for, like, cool.
Oh, okay. How did that not happen anymore?
I don't know. I like it. We should try and bring that back.
Yo, dude, that's macaroni!
All right, well, maybe we could do better than that, but...
I think you have to instantly become Guy Fieri to do that. That's
I'm so glad that people other than me also hate Guy Fieri.
I didn't say I hated him.
Oh, no, I just mean in general. It turns out that's not just me. It's good news.
It's a lot of people. Because when Alton Brown announced the sequel to Good Eats...
What?
Oh, yeah, he did that, by the way.
Did it come out?
I don't think it's out yet. But he did it at, of all places, Dragon Con.
What?
So he was just there. And then he's just like, hey, here's the new show. It's basically Good Eats, but like better and now and current. And the crowd was just like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then he's like, and it's replacing a time slot of diners, drive-ins, and dives. And the crowd went wild.
I totally believe you. And also am excited because Good Eats is one of my favorite shows. Yeah. Have we talked about my theory that it's actually about him going insane?
I think we could do an entire episode about that.
Let's do an episode on my Good Eats theories in the future. Maybe a couple weeks from now, because we've got some stuff planned. We're going to try and have guests on, because we think it might just help dial back how incredibly attractive we are to listen to if we have someone else. Because we don't want to overpower people with interest, so we're going to have guests.
Right. You have to average it out.
Exactly. You leave some podcasting for the rest of the podcasters, if you know what I mean.
So, who would you want on the podcast, Liam?
Eliezer Yudkowsky.
Okay, that's like level 100 stuff, though.
Yeah, but you said who would I want on the podcast. That is the number one. I would cancel the podcast to get him on the podcast.
Well, yeah, that would just be the final episode, because you could never top it.
You couldn't. You'll hear more about him and his work with decision theory going forward. He's great. As far as people you might actually get as like a teaser for the listeners,
I've got a pretty good explanation.
I think we might be able to get like Chris Sims.
Okay. Who is that?
He is a comics guy. He did a lot of columns on Batman and Power Rangers. I listen to his podcasts because most of them are great, except for the popular one, which I want to like, I just can't. But he's small time enough, I think. If we did fairly well, we may be able to talk him into it.
Okay, so we could probably just do collaborations on stuff with different podcasters.
Yeah. I think that's probably our best plan, right? Because they already own a microphone.
The guys from Sailor Business.
Yeah, he's one of them. And best podcast ever, by the way. I'm happy to stake my reputation on all of you loving this podcast about the Sailor Moon anime. I don't actually care for the show, but the podcast is amazing.
And then I could probably have a couple of my professors from school, because oddly enough, we've had the same math professor at different colleges.
Oh yeah, Bun.
Yeah, so one of my best math professors that I've ever had, Dr. Bun, he was already pretty cool. And then one day, he starts giving an analogy for, I think it was linear algebra or calculus 2, using StarCraft. And everybody's just like, wait, what? And then we went over Markov chains with like, suppose this Twitch channel has this many followers, and this Twitch channel has this many followers, and people are going from this channel to this channel. And everybody's like, what? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm actually a cool dude. I used to, I did a segment of hard metal on Sirius Radio, and he has a Let's Play on YouTube of
what?
Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Okay, we're going to try and get Bun on. I liked him. He didn't do any of that, but I took his math class during a time in my life where I would get bored during math class a lot. So I would just sit there and think up the most, obtuse questions I could, and then at the end, ask him and see what he said. And he usually had kind of interesting answers.
Because you are very much that kind of person.
Yeah, no, super am. I think my favorite one was, is it possible to have more than one empty set? He had nothing for me. I had to go look it up. It turns out you can't.
No.
There's only one.
There's only one.
Yeah, there is a grand total of one empty set. You're welcome, guys. That took me like 30 seconds of Googling.
I mean, like, how would you make them different?
I don't know, but he didn't specify that anyone had, made sure there was only one. So I just wrote down, well, could I have more than one empty set? I don't think he had an answer for me.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not the guy you want to take a class with.
No, because I remember being in French class with you. And then, like, I kind of appreciated that because when we had French class, we had this professor, or I guess teacher, because it was high school. Madame
Hearn. Yeah. Not Madame. Madame, and she was very specific about it.
That's why I said Madame Hearn.
Ugh, she could not say your name.
Mr. Gilorakis.
This is the only reason I know how to spell it, by the way.
Yeah.
Because she would pronounce it incredibly phonetically. Every day.
It's like, oh, that's how you would say it in French. And I'm like, no, I have relatives in France, and that's not how they say it.
What happened in French class? I don't remember this.
So she was the kind of teacher that you could not pay attention in that class. She would serialize everyone. It's just like, okay, now the next student will answer this question out of the book, and you have to read it, and you have to do all this stuff. And if you don't, then you're in trouble. And it's just like, I want to just sit back and learn. I'm not the kind of person who's like, oh God, number 3, je l'aime la sienne. I love you, the river.
Did you just say je l'aime?
I don't know. This was like 4 years ago.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't that mean something like I the love?
Well,
I the you love. Yeah, I the you love. The river.
Yeah. And she'd be like, no, that's wrong, you idiot, get out. No, she wouldn't be like that, but she would be very mad at you.
She would say, you idiot. I heard that come out of her mouth more than once.
Mm-hmm. And, oh God, I just remembered the fact that we had headsets.
Oh my God, and they dropped down from the ceiling.
So
it was like something out of Star Wars.
So imagine, you're walking into a classroom and there's just like these bins on the ceiling. And you're just like, huh, what are those for? And then randomly she'd be like, okay, now we're having a segment where you have to like speak into the microphone. So these bins would just descend.
And now there's a bin next to you with like a giant headset in it.
It's like, couldn't have that just been part of the desk? Why did you need that to lower from the ceiling? That must have cost like $1 million.
Yeah. And it was so... She would make you like read the book and just say French words, and she'd listen to you, but only when you didn't know. Like, she'd listen to everyone, but you would never know who she was listening to.
Right. She would just like switch what person she was listening to, and it's like, Billy's not saying anything. He's an idiot.
Yeah, that was a weird... And that was recently after... I grew up in Canada. So I took, like, 5 years of French in Canada, where they speak French. Mm-hmm. And then I came to the United States, and I took French 1 in high school. And the first day, I went up to Madame Hearn, and I said, so, I took French in Canada, where it's the second language of the country? And she went, oh no, I've been to Canadian French. What did you do? Learn to count to 3? Ironically, I can now count to 5.
Ooh.
Thanks to American French 1, my favorite class of all time.
Oh, speaking of numbers in different languages, so you know the card game Uno, right?
Is that the one that's basically Crazy Eights but worse?
Right. So that came out like 50 years ago. And now Mattel, the company that made it, is like, you know what? I think it's time, guys. We're gonna release DOS.
I'm sorry, what?
And it's the exact same game, but instead of one deck, you have two. And when you have two cards left in your hand, you have to shout DOS.
What?
Pick
This
it up
isn't
at your
real.
local Target.
This is not. Hang on, I'm Googling this.
It's not out yet, but I don't think it's an April Fool's joke because it's supposed to come out, like, I think this month.
Okay, so quick question, because I just got a bunch of information on the DOS prompt. How do you spell DOS? I took French.
No, it's DOS.
Oh, it is? Okay.
And
it's not MS-DOS.
No, it's not Microsoft. Search.
What about the 10th album by Green Day?
No, I don't even think I've heard that one.
Oh my god, DOS card game.
Yeah, there you go.
What? Okay, alright.
It seems like a joke, doesn't it?
Hang on. Uno has a new best friend, DOS. In this fun game, 2 is more important than 1, and numbers are king. What? To start, there are 2 piles in the middle of the participants, and on each player's turn, they can play on both piles with either 1 or 2 cards. Okay, Jesus, you weren't kidding. It's just 2 of everything. In a fun twist, if a player has 2 cards that add up to the number of the card in the center pile... The center pile? Wouldn't that make it be 3 piles?
I'm not sure.
The first person to 200 points is the winner? Are there points? I thought you had to get rid of all your cards. It says, just like Uno, DOS is a race to get rid of your cards before your competitors. The first person to 200 points is the winner. I don't get it.
Maybe it's like Quidditch, where you can get tiny points for everything, but really you have to get like all your cards gone, and that just gives you 200 points and you win.
This game is for 2 to guess how many players.
I've seen the thing, so I know it's 4.
It's not. It's 10.
What? I thought it
This
said
classic
4.
card game invites 2 to 10 players to challenge each other as individuals or teams.
What happens if you bring on an 11th person? Does it just blow up?
Presumably you get to trace.
Guys, we need to see how high we can go. Come on, get Billy, get Jimmy.
Somebody get me a Spanish language dictionary. I need to make some number puns.
It's like, guys, we're playing Cinco, and there's like, you put the cards in a pentagram, and then you summon a demon, and then he's just like, well, you gotta have 1,000 points, bro.
So do you play Uno with Yu-Gi-Oh style rules, where the rules don't count, and it's just whoever can bullshit the hardest about what happened in the show?
Oh, so you just have to convince people that like, oh yeah, you can do that.
Do you not remember that? Because that was 100% a thing when I was a kid.
I never played like that. I played Munchkin like that, but...
Okay, but that's just how Munchkin is meant to be played. If you're
Yeah.
not lying and cheating, you're not doing it right. Like, literally. I'm not joking. For those of you who aren't familiar with the game, it's in the rules.
Yeah, the rules specifically say, like, cheating's okay unless you're caught, and in which case, like, you're kind of fucked. But if you don't get caught...
Yeah, you just succeeded. Good job. Hang on, how did we get here?
Oh. Yeah, how did we get here? We're talking about card games, and then
We were
like,
talking
numbers.
about card games. Oh, French. Wait, but no, because it was Spanish.
Oh.
No, yeah, we talked about Madame Hearn, who we met in high school. Well, we were doing introductions.
Oh, right. It's how we got here for the podcast.
That's how we got here.
Ah, it's clever.
That's not bad. I like that. That can be the title, I bet.
What? How did we
Okay.
get here? Or
Yeah, how did we
got
get here? How did we get here sounds better than to me.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, how do we get here sounds even better.
Listen to HWH podcast. Yeah, that sounds cool.
I like that. All right. So let's move into our new segment. Our next new segment, I guess. They're all... Shut up, listeners. I know what I'm doing. We're going to enter into suspension of disbelief, which is a bit that we want to put into the podcast, discuss rationality, and I'm thinking maybe branch out into more general philosophy, specifically ethics, and more likely focusing primarily on utilitarian natural rights and social contractarianism. But we'll get into it. That's all fun stuff.
Okay, so you're smart with the whole thinking thing, right?
Me do think good sometime.
Would you pull the lever?
Yes.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Liam would pull the lever.
Welcome to the trolley problem. We're not going to explain that today. Have fun. So, we want to discuss rationality, and I think a good place to start for episode 1 is what actually is rationality. And to answer that, I would tell you to watch Star Trek and just do whatever Spock does.
Not really.
No? Is that not exactly how it should work?
That sounds highly illogical, Captain.
So there's this thing that Hollywood does where it pretends that all rational people are secretly autistic robots and that nothing else can count as rationality.
Mm-hmm.
But that's stupid. That doesn't actually make sense. You should be able to win if you are being a good rationalist.
Right. Or winning was never an option.
True, that's possible. But that's rarely a helpful option to consider.
That's what we call nihilism.
We could do a couple weeks on Nietzsche. He was wrong mostly.
I thought it was Nietzsche.
It depends how pedantic you want to be.
It's niche.
It's niche. You know, like your special little clique in society.
No, that wasn't the name of the guy. His name was John. His philosophical ideas were just really niche.
All right, that was pretty good. So we're going to try and take a new topic related to rationality or philosophy every week and discuss it in not too great depth, just enough that you can get a taste of it. The number one goal we have in this section is to get you to read something called The Sequences on lesswrong.com. Read The Sequences. Because rationality is, good and stuff.
Okay, so yeah, I think that should be the goal for this first episode or maybe the next episode. Because I feel like a lot of people jumping into rationality, they're like, oh, rationality is the same thing as logic. But it's really not.
No, although you are better off also having a grasp of logic. Because good thinking is a skill. It's not something that you're just magically born with. Although a lot of people feel like it is, because they never practiced particularly good thinking. Good thinking is a skill that needs to be practiced and learned, and it's possible to do that, and for some reason we don't tell that to kids.
Yeah, if there was just a class on, how to think well, you would have to hire better teachers, which might be a problem, because then they would have to learn rationality. But then I feel like a lot of the world's problems would just be kind of solved.
Maybe. I think it's important to use good thinking strategies, because your fleshy meat brain just isn't very clever. And don't get me wrong, humans are very adaptable, but a lot of the stuff that was built in to make you good at surviving in this kind of ancestral planes is useless when it comes to surviving in a casino.
Yeah.
When there's all kinds of flashing lights. And they actually do a lot of really cool stuff to mess with your thinking. Maybe we'll do an episode on casinos and how they're bullshit.
For a rationality corner?
I think maybe just in general, because they do some really cool social engineering stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that'd work.
Yeah. Oh, God, I was talking about... I never got into my doors stuff. Okay, so you may be wondering... how exactly is it that Rick and Morty's real fake doors applies to ancient Egyptian architecture? And I think the secret can be found in an older episode if you're really paying attention. Now, what I want you to do is go and load up season 1, and then... If you'd like to contact the show, you can do so at hwhpodcast@gmail.com. For more information regarding the show, I guess contact us. We don't have a website yet. HWH Podcast is a production of Dusty Closet Radio.